Hello, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Wednesday. And if you are watching in the future, thanks for tuning in then as well. Today we have a fun conversation because the reality is that for those of us that corrective color is a little bit of our bag or what we get excited to do, the reality is we are going to unexpectedly be stepping back into a place where we are going to have an experience with people who traditionally would be, staying up to date on their color appointments, and they wouldn't have any corrective color situations. They never would have touched an over-the-counter color. But the reality is that these uncertain times mean that people are doing unprecedented things. And we want to be here prepared and ready to both support them, but also to ensure that we don't have any additional stress more than we are coming to expect in these coming times. So with that, we're going to launch into our comeback application. We spoke on Monday about our comeback consultation, which is an absolutely vital part to this entire process, which is really truly taking a thorough evaluation, treating every current client like a brand new client for the first time, because we're going to be seeing them in a different way than we've seen them before. Again, if they typically came in with that ½ inch of new growth, they may be coming in with 1 inch or more of that, or highlights that would have been touched up in between. And so now we have much more new growth in regards to the highlights as well. And so we're really going into now, once we see these things, we've had them do the Zoom or send us the photos of where they currently are. We've evaluated the color that they have on their head and where they'd like to go. Now comes the time for the application. And so I'm so lucky to have we've had some great dialogue around this. And so Drew, I know one of the first things that you shared was in regards to applying the regrowth application, what we need to take into consideration, because we are going to have more time than we ever have before in between appointments. So could you just share with us? I'm going to mute everybody real quick, and then could you just come off mute one more time? Hey. All right, Drew, you're all set.
All right, perfect. So one of the first things I thought of is the fact that when we do have new growths coming in, I have a lot of every 3 to 4 week retouches that come into the salon. And already, I've been at home for 4 weeks. And so most of my retouches have already surpassed their 3 to 4 week mark. And so now we're thinking about just regrowth application in general, because we have to think about the fact that that ½ inch closest to the scalp is a heat source, and then anything past that does not have the same amount of heat source. And so we're going to have to treat our applications of retouches in a different way. We're going to have to first start by applying from that ½ inch away from the regrowth to where that line is of grown out color. And then we're going to have to go back in and then reapply to the regrowth. In terms of permanent color, you may have to go just slightly darker on the regrowth. Like I personally would formulate a 1/4 to ½ a shade darker, just because of the heat source being there. And then in addition to that, thinking about, I do a lot of all over blondes. I have a lot of platinum blonde clients. And so I'm already thinking about the conversations I'm going to have with them about having to apply from that ½ inch out to where their blonde starts, letting that process for a little bit, and then going back in and reapplying the regrowth application because of that heat source. And so just being able to mentally kind of picture what that looks like, how to apply it, and then also be willing to have those conversations with your clients, because it might cost a little bit more money than a typical retouch as well. That's a conversation that you have to have, because we're now using more product, and we've been out of work for quite a minute, and we're not exactly 100% sure where we're going back. And so the more product we use, without charging for it, the less money that's going to be back in our pocket when we walk back into the salon. And so that's a conversation that absolutely has to be had with a client as well, is I'm not going to charge you for a double retouch and not quite a full global application of color, but you're going to have to gauge that based on how much color you use, the amount of time it takes you to apply these color processes, and then also, just as I said, the steps in general, time and amount of product.
Yeah, and so I think also, you know, what I'm hearing from you is that we may be assessing what would typically have been a new growth touch-up, and now it is looking like a virgin application. So even though the mids and ends have been assessed prior to this point, we may need to consider applying outside of that heat zone first, like we would in a traditional virgin application, and then going back and doing that double application. And this will need to be assessed based on where we're starting, where we're going to, because this could be not only a change in application method, but also a need for a change in your product or your developer choice. So a change in your formulation. And again, that in addition to being additional effort, which we should all feel very comfortable in the fact that that is additional effort, that does have an opportunity to have additional compensation. And again, this isn't price gouging. This is because we are now in a different position, but also, if nothing else, to cover the additional product that will be used. Again, to not further, you know, hurt or, you know, at the mercy of further cost of either the salon or the business professional. Because again, for independent, you know, contractors where you're buying your own, or, you know, 1099, however you want to think about this, you're buying your own product. But remember that if you work for a salon, you may not think that another 3 ounces of color are a big deal, but it's a big deal when you start to add that up over a much larger salon staff or a very busy salon. So we need to be conscious of this. We need to be cognizant of the fact that we could be further hurting our businesses that have already been financially impacted through this time. So I think that's what I heard from you, is that we may need to evaluate it as more of a virgin application.
Absolutely. And I do feel that as long as you're willing to have those conversations with clients prior to application, just talking about the fact that this is going to cost a little bit more based on product and additional time, those are conversations that will kind of like ease them into just understanding a price difference, instead of just doing it and then getting up to the front and then saying, oh, your color is, you know, 1.5 times more than usual or however much. Then that's when I think clients gain that little bit of shock. But yes, we absolutely have to treat it as more or less a virgin application at that point.
Yeah, and I think this takes us back to, and so if you weren't able to tune in on Monday, and for those of us, we have a lot of people trickling in as well. So if you're just joining us, make sure you put your social handle down below. It's the benefit of jumping on live. But if you weren't able to see our consultation conversation on Monday, this is really what we were trying to drive home, is that there are going to be some unexpected, unprecedented experiences, even for our customers, and that we have to have that professional dialogue with them, because if we help them gain an understanding as to why their appointment's going to take more time, or going to require, you know, more resources, or require a more expert application, we can help them to understand why there is a price difference maybe on this return visit, or we can set a proposal out where maybe they can't afford it this visit, but we could determine how to do that appropriately in upcoming visits to meet where they are also. Whether it's they need some pampering and they want, you know, everything that you have to offer from A to Z, or if they need to maybe pare down a little bit of what they were doing prior to achieve that desired end effect. So I love that. I love the fact that it is completely founded in color chemistry and color technology and understanding how those things work. And so we can't expect an exaggerated amount of new growth and to be able to put the same formula on and get the same results that we would have had previously with less new growth. So Kristen, that takes me to something as a salon owner, and I know you have a very large staff. So you guys are quite a large salon. And I know that's something that you said that I don't think that everyone is thinking this way. And so I'd love for you to share out, because we're talking about needing extra product. And from a salon owner's perspective, and you said this is relevant whether you're a salon owner or not, after people have waited this long, the last thing you want to do is be out of resources. So can you share with us how you're evaluating that and why you think it's so important to really take a look at what your inventory is?
Yeah, I sure can. I think that what's going to end up happening is you're going to be using products maybe that you don't normally use. So your staff that's been busy and has a complete full clientele, and they are used to be doing just retouches and so forth. And it's going to be very different from those clients or those stylists who have more of a, they're newer stylists and they're still building their clientele and their clients don't come back maybe as often. So I think for me, I'm kind of looking at which stylist clientele looks like, like my younger stylists who have more highlights and more girls who kind of trickle in, not as gray, let's say, but my clientele is really heavily saturated, with touches and what Drew was saying is what I'm going to be dealing with. So I'm evaluating kind of on the clientele that we have in the salon. And then what I'm doing is I'm kind of doubling my inventory, even though it's so hard because we're not working, we're not making money, and we can't really afford to do that sometimes, some people. But I think that we need to really evaluate what we have in the salon so that we make sure that we have enough, because we're going to be going through more color because people are going to have more new growth. We're going to be going through a lot more product when it comes to any color corrections if they've used box dyes or any other products out there. So you need to make sure that you really have all the products that you possibly could have, so that way you're ready to go when we are starting back up. So I think doing a full inventory in your salon and really digging deep into what you actually have, and then sitting down maybe with your staff on Zoom and figuring out what you should order more of and so forth. But I think that's really important to do now, so that way you are prepared.
Yeah, I love that. And again, we understand that we all have to take into consideration where we are financially. So we're not minimizing the fact that we know being out of the salon, from behind the chair, closing your business, wherever you are on that spectrum, there has been a loss of income. But what we don't want to do is further inhibit our ability to make money when we're back into the salon and now somebody's not able to offer that full corrective color because they don't have the tool, or they don't have enough of the appropriate tool that actually saves enough time that they're able to put that in the scheduled space that client has already been booked for. Or they're not able to offer something because they don't have enough product to go all the way through. So again, it can feel like, well, at a time like right now, how or why would I spend more money on those things? And it doesn't mean you have to order today, but as we near the time of getting back to the salon, it would be a great time to order that product up front for yourself to ensure that you have everything that you need, so that you're like a well-oiled machine, whether you're an independent contractor or not, and you have all the tools in your toolbox. And this is something we talk about all of the time, is that yes, just like cutting hair, you could cut almost every single head of hair with one set of shears, but there are absolutely different cutting tools that simplify the amount of time spent to achieve the same look, or do it actually better, or preserve the integrity of the hair better while accomplishing that look. So same goes with any of our color or chemical products. Same thing, is that it may not be that you couldn't achieve it with a traditional box of lightener, but if you had a calibrated tool that gave a more precise way of lightening or color removal, you've now ensured that your younger staff or someone a little less experienced, or even those of us just busy and going through, you don't end up creating a more corrective situation while trying to correct the situation that we've been given. So I really loved that mindset, and I think it's something that we do need to have careful evaluation of right now. And so, Mariah, I know that the reality also is that some of this grow out is going to give us an opportunity at really addressing or kind of gaining headway on where people were already looking, especially in the new trend. And for all of us in the industry, we've all, you know, we know hand painting, we know natural hair, we know people, you know, have moved into this place of wanting less of a line of demarcation. And so we have seen that some of the full coverage desires that we've seen in the past, you know, if you had a white hair, it was like the cardinal sin, don't be a woman with white hair ever. And now we're seeing a lot more of that blended effect. So Mariah, can you just share like how to consult, what that proposal would look like, any tips that you have around this more blended effect?
Yeah, I know in my personal experience, I do have a good handful of clientele that were considering moving away from permanent color, in that, you know, just trying to make it a little bit less maintenance in their lives, or try to get a more softer look, because they're becoming naturally more white haired, or, you know, they want to transition away. And prior to all of this, you know, we talk about, oh, going as light as possible, or lightening your natural color, or your touch-up color rather, you know, throughout each appointment. But now we'll have this amount of time in between, 4 weeks or so, where they will have that new growth, and then they'll also have fading on the ends. So depending on what their color actually is, this could be the perfect opportunity to just reassess, kind of like how we talked about in the consultation webisode, where they're at, and treating them as if they're a brand new client. Now, knowing that they have the desire to try some other things, what does that mean now? Do they do highlights, or do we do more of a blending type of color versus a full coverage? Like, what does that really mean? And using this as the opportunity to transition them there, if that is something that they were desiring. You know, the color that the brand that I work with, we offer a line specifically that can camouflage that white hair and kind of give that blending effect. So we have those tools, like Lindsay was talking about, those tools in our toolbox, and offering those as a potential service for clients coming back if they are really wanting to transition to a new look.
Yeah, I love that. And something that, you know, just came up in my brain as well is that a lot of times as we're letting that new growth, you know, grow out so that we can get a true representation of the percentage of white, because to blend without understanding, well, are they 40%? Are they 100% in the front and 10% in the back? Like, what are we talking about when we're talking about blending? Do we need to do global blending? Can we do just some isolated blending in the temple or in the, you know, the front hairline where we tend to, you know, have the most white? But it can be a great opportunity as well as an upcharge. And again, this isn't about price gouging our clients. This is about giving them the best solution to their end objective, and ensuring that we all have a clear understanding of what our desired end effect is and how much time, maintenance, and cost is going to be required with that. And so you know, it's about the posture that we come to the conversation with. And with that, this is a great time for that client who has wanted to move in that direction to maybe do that baby weave, or to use you know, a sticky comb and do a really micro weave and heavily lighten some of those areas and tone those to have the essence of white hair, so that you can start to break up those mids and ends, so they don't have this harsh line of demarcation and then faded color, but rather they have that more gradient, true representation of what grown out blended white hair would look like. So, you know, now someone who was previously only a single process could be a partial highlight and color. And and of course, that's going to change their booking. So this is part of the consultation, how they're no longer going to sit for, you know, the 30 to 40 minutes, but the application time is maybe going to take me a half an hour instead of 15. And then they'll sit those 30 or 40 minutes. And then there's the glaze that comes at the end. And so now they need to have the expectation of spending more time with me, more money with me, and have a clear understanding of what the end effect is going to be. And so this is a way to come back and not only serve them at our highest level, but also ensure that we're getting compensated and earning a little bit of extra money by helping them reach that objective. So I loved that, Mariah. It was just absolutely something we should be considering. And so Drew, I know that you were talking about, so of course, you guys, it's impossible that we're going to come back and no one, you know, OTC'd their hair color. Like, some people are still having to go to work. Some people, it just makes them feel good. I mean, I'm watching on Instagram and social, people wake up and just put a curl in their hair or mascara on to feel human again. So there's no judgment there, but we know we're coming back and we're going to have some of these, you know, some boo-boos, if you will, some, you know, self-service boo-boos. And we're going to want to create some color correction. And there may be times where simply a whole overhaul isn't within the budget or within our time capabilities, because we're going to be shoving a lot of people into a period of time in which there were likely already clients booked, right? Because we're missing appointments, but there are upcoming appointments that have already been there, and those people are going to be ready and waiting and expecting that their appointment is still standing. So Drew, you had a really great concept, and it's not something new in the industry. We've all heard the money piece, but tell us some of the ways in which we could use this money piece to camouflage a boo-boo or to lighten their mood, or all the things that you shared around it I thought were brilliant.
Yeah, so first thing I want to say though about, you know, just kind of thinking about these boo-boos and stuff, if you missed our come back consultation episode the other day, I would strongly suggest that if you do have clients that have been box coloring their hair, doing some at-home treatments, possibly trying to just reach out to them in either FaceTime or Zoom, a quick consult, just so that you know what you have going back into the salon. But one of the things I thought about that I'm going to try to suggest to a lot of people as I walk back into the salon is just adding a few foils, primarily like around the hairline in some of the areas that are money pieces, like around the eyes and around their part, just to really kind of like add a little bit of brightness. It's going to help lift out some of that, you know, self-inflicted hair color. And it's also just going to add a little bit of brightness, because we're also coming from a time that some people who don't think as positively as we do might think a little bit more darkly, and we can kind of like help to elevate their spirit by adding a little bit of brightness, also adding a little bit of a light correction, as I would call it, around the face by just being able to break up some of that with a few foils, and then just giving them something that's literally going to brighten their day.
Yes, I love it. And you think about like even just pulling, if people pull their hair back all the time, that's going to give a nice little separation to maybe what has happened with the OTC experience, and allow them to have more ways in which they can continue to camouflage that. If it is a requirement to continue to meet their budgetary needs, to do that incrementally. So we can help and meet them there, and also ensure that they're walking billboards for us, because again, the reality is that every head of hair that goes out of your chair is a walking billboard, either in your, you know, that benefits you, or might persuade people to seek someone else. So we want, you know, even like people don't know, oh, she box colored her hair. All they're going to know is that, you know, who does their hair, if someone likes it or doesn't. So these are great ways to make your walking advertisement, your walking billboards, be a better representation of your skill level. So this kind of swings me around to the conversation that we were just, you know, I addressed it briefly, but Kristen, I know you're really evaluating booking times and how and who needs to be informed around this. So can you just share with us who you're training within your business about the booking times and how to have that conversation?
Yeah, for sure. So because, you know, there are 27 of us and we have 3 receptionists. So you can imagine they have 25 people that they have to work with. And that's everyone from, you know, spa to salon. And what's going to happen is every service is going to take longer. So even, you know, even my esthetician who has eyebrows, I mean, that's going to take longer to reshape and so forth. So I think that right now what I'm working on, and I think would be really beneficial for anyone, would be to have Zoom meetings with your staff and start with your receptionists, have meetings with them, and then maybe have a meeting where they facilitate on Zoom to your staff. So, and then have that conversation so that everyone can decipher how much time extra do we need? What kind of questions do we need to ask? And so forth. And really figure out, you know, what kind of take that you're gonna go on this, because we still have, and I know we have future conversations where we still all need to decide, like you said, Lindsay, who's going to get the appointment, and who comes first, the people that have been booking online per se that think that they're going to get first, or the people that already had appointments 3 weeks ago. So also explaining to my staff that you're going to get people that are very angry on the phone. You're going to deal with some customer service from people that you might have been best friends with, you thought, and they might get feisty with you a little bit, because everyone is going to want in. They're going to want in now, and they're all going to need more time. And a big thing that you really need to do is, when you're consulting on the phone, is making sure that people are actually being truthful too. Because a lot of people are going to want in so badly that they're not going to say that maybe they box dyed or that they did something, because they think that they can get away with it and then have a shorter appointment, let's say. I mean, let's not, we just have to be real that these kind of situations might and could happen. So I think having these conversations with your staff now, so you can prepare for, what you have to do when you get to that point.
Yeah, and I think it even goes back again, not to continue going back to Monday, but the reality is that the simple questions, whether, and this can be challenging if you don't have a receptionist, right? For a lot of our studio salon suite owners, they're receptionist and the stylist. And so it can be hard to have that identity, like to have two identities with the same person, and everybody wants to kind of friend zone you at that moment, and like you are gonna get, help them out. And so I think that having practiced that language, this is a great time to put pen to paper and truly script something out. It doesn't mean you're gonna read it, but to have it very clear in your mind as to why you're choosing whatever method it is you're choosing. And also to ask those really important questions. Have you, over the countered anything on your hair? It's okay if you have, I just need to know so that I can appropriately take care of you, and that I can ensure that the formula that we were previously using would still work. If you have, no big deal. I'm just asking for a simple, go out in daylight and take some selfie photos. I don't need to see anything below your eyebrows. So selfie photo, like literally section your hair where it is, and selfie photo, hold up a section, maybe give me a 10-second video to help instruct them how they can actually help us help them. So I think that's continuing to have that and teach how to have that conversation. If you have a receptionist that's doing that for you, I know where, in the salon that I was working in, I had a receptionist, but we were all independent. So we had a receptionist, but each artist was able to have their own parameters or guidelines. And so, the reality is that's the way that it functions. And so you have to ensure for your clientele that you have helped the person who's helping your books fully understand how they can support you, and also what your expectation is. So I think that is just something great to bring to the forefront and to remember. And the reality, and Mariah, I would love for you to touch on, because we know that, especially with your hand in education and color chemistry and all of that, but we know that people are coming back with extended grow outs, at least a portion of our clientele. And we know that we may have to assess and now have two formulas, one that would be a new growth formula and one that would be a mid area formula, which would essentially be anything outside that hot zone, between outside the hot zone to the line of demarcation. And then possibly a third formula from line of demarcation down through the ends. You may need a refresh. It may have become, that infamous brassy over time, because they're going to have increased fading because they haven't seen you as frequently. Or maybe they're washing their hair like manically because it's like a way to cleanse away the day. Who knows, right? Maybe they're not washing their hair at all. Who knows? But that's the reality, is that it's a great time to have the conversation, obviously, about and to evaluate possibly needing two or more formulas on a head, and also possibly proposing change. So just guide us through some of the ways you see that proposal going, and things we should think about chemically as we talk about that and plan for that.
Yeah, I think that Drew kind of touched on it earlier when he was talking about the virgin application, just considering the different zones of the hair, considering each each section and how we understand the chemicals to perform on those different areas. And then I think also too, again, this is the time where we know we're all professionals and they come to us because we're professionals, but sometimes we can get a little familiar with our clients where it becomes more of like a friendship type of relationship, or that professionals, they don't hold you in that authority position. I think now is a really great time to have that conversation with them and using that professional language, not technical jargon, so to say, but speaking in very professional terms, looking at, okay, this is the hair that's in front of me and I need 2 formulations for these reasons, because this and that, in a very simplified way, so that we can also give them comfort and certainty, bringing some certainty back to their lives of, okay, well, she's got me or he's got me, they're going to take care of me, and, you know, reassuring them that we know exactly what we're doing, why we're formulating the way that we're formulating. And then too, if you need to have the conversation about pricing, having that right there as well too, which I think all wraps back into that professionalism, reestablishing or solidifying that belief in us that we truly are there to guide them through this whole process, this whole service, that we're going to do our very best to take care of them, that when we're looking to that extent versus just like, oh, I'm going to go mix up your color, run in the back, mix it up and come back, that you're taking the time to demonstrate to them that you really, really care about what is happening on their head, that you've thought about them in this time lapse in between. And so just, I mean, I always go back to honesty, just being very honest and transparent with them about what you're doing and why. There's no need to keep anything secret. We're doing these things for their benefit and because, you know, we want to serve them. So just being very real about the procedure and being very real about the cost associated with it, and then letting them have their part in the conversation where they're making the decision and telling you, okay, this is what I'd like to move forward with, or that sounds great, you know, let's go, or let's adjust this. Just being very real and open and transparent.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, people are may be seeking a big change. They, you know, sometimes through traumatic experiences, and I'm going to call that this because it's not something that we've ever experienced before, and that can sometimes, you know, create the desire to do the thing you never had you were never brave enough to do, or you were never sure enough to do, or you were never confident enough to do. So the reality too is that it's a great time to have that proposal, or maybe you've always seen them moving in a direction, and it's hard because, like you said, we gain this familiarity, and so it can be hard to become the person who pushes them to outside of their comfort zone. And this may be a great time to help to not only accomplish that, but to truly propose it, to be the visionary of the final finished effect that they could have. And Drew, I know you touched on this a little bit on Monday too. Like this is a great time to have that, to see them different, or allow them to see themselves differently. And this could become, you know, especially if they're in a corrective color situation anyways, then there's no time like the present to help that. So I'm going to go to some of the things in the chat bar. This is the benefit of joining us live, is that we have live chat going on. And so if you are watching in the future, we're grateful for you watching, of course, but we invite you to come back and join us for a live segment. So you can always join in and do the live Q&A afterwards, which we do privately off screen. We also all share in the chat section all of our social handles so that we can follow one another and truly become that united community. But in addition, you have access to typing things into the chat bar and contributing, and we're so grateful for that. So from Jackie, we had, can you address the best way to charge people that no-show or cancel the day of? She's never done this before, but obviously these are new times, and every moment is going to be a very essential moment. And to piggyback that with Annika, what she contributed is the fact that we are going to possibly need to consider that we're only going to be allowed to have a certain number of people in the salon. So a cancellation could do more than only impact your books, but say you're in a larger salon and we're having to rotate around who can have clients so that we're staying to that minimum. If my client doesn't show up and Sally Sue didn't get to take a client because my client was supposed to be there, it could have a larger impact. So for anybody, you know, any of the leaders, if you want to jump off and talk about how you're going to address, or the kind of communication you think would be appropriate to have around this no-show canceling fee, or how to maybe navigate through that.
I do have a no-show. We already do that, so I can share what we do and what we've done in the past. So for anybody who books, you know, over 2 people, or, you know, if it's a wedding and so forth like that, we have this in place, and where you have to do a deposit of half the service. And it is non-refundable unless you cancel within so many hours and everything. So what we do for people who no-show, we do a similar idea behind it. What we do is, once you've canceled, or once you've no-showed, I'm sorry, one time, and then maybe, you know, we bring it to your attention at the reception desk. And it can be kind of awkward, but I actually have the staff do it, not the receptionist, because I feel like you have a better rapport with your client than, you know, the receptionist do. And they just explain to them why we have this in place. And I tell them to blame it on me as the owner. And I know that not everybody has that if you are an independent contractor, but what they pretty much tell them is that when you have no-showed, what we do is, when you book your next appointment in the future, we make you do a 50% deposit. And so we actually do deposits prior to your appointment. So that way my staff, if they are no-showed, they're at least getting 50% of it. And we've done that for 10 years. And so now, going into this situation, it is something that I think we have to actually be stronger about. I think we actually need to even be more serious about it. And something like that, what we've had implemented in the past, I don't think is even strong enough. So I think at this point, I'm to the point now where I have to implement something even stronger. And I'd love to hear, maybe like Drew, because you're a salon owner too, what you're going to be doing. But I'm going to be having that conversation with my staff. And I haven't yet decided how we're going to do that. And we might have to take it a day at a time, but I think the hard part is when you do deposits prior, you know, you have to do it over the phone. So it's a credit card, which we probably won't want to be accepting cash for a while anyway, which is a whole nother conversation. But the problem is you do get charged fees when you're taking credit card over the phone, higher fees when you're implementing it with your hand versus, you know, scanning it. And that's the same for even squares and so forth. So I think that is something that everybody has to decide what's going to be best for them. And I do think you have to have something in place that's going to defer them from wanting to do it. But I personally don't know the answer quite yet. So Drew?
So I was just going to say, our cancellation and late policy that we have right now requests at very minimally 24-hour advance notice for canceling or rescheduling, and we're very strict on that. And anything that is canceled or rescheduled within that 24 hours, there is a 50% fee for that appointment, just because we may not have the time to fully fill it at that point. And for no-shows, we charge 100% of the missed appointment, and we collect that before we reschedule. And I've been very strict on that for the past 6 years, and I've only ever have had a couple of people give me attitude about it, but they were also repeat offenders. And so at that point, they weren't necessarily clients that I wanted to maintain, because as a busy working professional, I have a waiting list. And so I can definitely refill that. I know that not everyone has a waiting list, but I think when we walk back into the salon, it is going to be a very delicate topic of conversation, because we have to basically tell our clients while we're rebooking them that if for any reason you are unable to make that appointment, please at least try to give us 48 hours advance notice that we can refill that, because we have been off of work for, I'm going to say 2 to 3 months. We don't know. And I'm basically catching up on appointments. And so every time slot is very valuable right now. We also have to implement additional cleaning measures, because even though we may be able to walk back into the salon, we are, you know, the coronavirus is not going to be gone by then. It's still going to be lingering. There's still not a vaccine for it or any type of strong set cure. And so we are going to have to, every appointment that comes into the salon, we're going to have to re-sanitize our station after every single client, prepare for the next. And, you know, these are things that take extra time. And we also have to think about that when rebooking. And so every appointment needs to be treated like goal. And so for you, Jackie, especially, I would say as you're rebooking, this is what I'm going to be doing. As I'm rebooking appointments, I'm going to basically be giving them, with their confirmation, our new cancellation and late policy, given the pandemic that we've all have gone through. So.
Yeah, and Madeline stated something, and I know we talked about it also, but this is another great opportunity to have a point of contact with your clients. So again, not, filling an email with 27 pages of all the things you need to teach them and tell them about in between, but setting yourself up for success with a weekly or bi-weekly email that's going out, that's letting them know exactly what you're doing. So if you've recently taken the 𝗣𝗿𝗄𝗽 exam and you received that certification, that would be a point of contact. Talking to them about the importance of, setting up a Zoom or sending in photos, and that conversation, that could be a point of contact. And this could be another point of contact. And again, each point of contact, I think, should be a topic. That's my recommendation. Keep it topic specific. So this one would say, or be around like this entire conversation. So our new or given the unexpected experience of this pandemic, we have had to reevaluate our cancellation policy to ensure that we're able to best serve all of our clients, those that appointments were immediately impacted and those whose standing appointments are now going to be impacted by the overflow. And every moment is and telling them, like, every moment is vital that we're open, and we are requiring more in between time, or we're having to reduce the number of, whatever is true of your space, we're having to reduce the number of clients in the salon. And so, share with them how their cancellation could impact your business. They want to know why. Not what it is, because everybody has it. They want to know, why did you implement this? So whatever reasons you're implementing your cancellation policy for, your why, share that with your guests, because that will help them to connect in that heart space and understand how they would be impacting you. And these are people who love you. They choose to see you. They have chosen to be your guest because they have, they think you're talented, and they probably adore a million things about you. So remind them why this would negatively impact you and others. And I feel that humanity always shows up in that situation. When they see the bigger vision, the reality is that the mom who's never been a hairstylist, never worked where her time is traded for money, meaning that we work on a time schedule, she may never understand that getting hung up with her girlfriend having coffee, the bigger impact that could have on so many people. So lend them that story. And I love that. Thank you for the contribution, Jackie and Annika, and then Drew and Kristen. And Drew, I see that you listed in our chat section how your policy is listed on your webpage, which I love that. Thank you for giving that demonstration. So we are going to close up here, but I want to leave it on another positive note. This one is a little bit longer of a webisode, but it's a really important topic, because the reality is our comeback, our first opportunity to be back with our guests is going to be, they always say you can't make a first impression twice. Well, this is going to be our first opportunity at making our comeback presentation of self and business. And so it really is an important one. So I want to land with one, kind of happier thing, I guess, or lighter thing as well, which is simply, Mariah, I know that we were talking about, and this is just a little service add-on, but talking about the opportunity to do that clear glaze for people. Why would that benefit them? How would that help? Maybe from where they're coming from to where they're going for. And I know Drew referenced, some people on Monday, he was talking, some people are going to want to come back in and be pampered. So can you just share how you would propose this additional service and why we would use it? And we'll close out with that. Once Mariah is done, we'll say goodbye. And then for those that are live on and want to stay around for Q&A, we welcome you to do so.
Yeah, I love shine treatments personally, because who doesn't want to have shinier, happier looking hair, right? And so whether our clients have been not coloring their hair, or maybe they have been doing some at home, Drew, what did you call it? Self-inflicted color at home, and they are not getting blowouts. like salon quality blowouts, those really nice finishes that we know that they love when they come in and they talk about, oh, I wish I could just take you home and have you do my hair every single day. So we know that we're going to finish the service with the blowout, and offering to them, hey, Sally Sue, I was thinking of you and thinking of ways to just really take care of you and make your blowout really pop. And I have this clear treatment that I would love to offer for you. And then I let them know the cost associated with it. I say it's only X amount of dollars, and you determine that based on your area and your salon. How does that sound, or what do you think about that? And I have yet to have a client say, oh no, I don't think so. Because I tell them, who doesn't want to shine and sparkle like a diamond, you know? And so they just are all on board. So that is one way to just kind of enhance that finish of that service, even if they're not getting color per se. If they're just a haircut client, or even if they are coming in for a blowout, you can offer it to them. It'll put a couple extra dollars in your pocket. Again, like Lindsay said, not offering it with the intention of what can I get from it, but offering it in service to that client and saying, hey, I really think that you would love this, and, you know, finishing with that amazing blowout, so they can bring that vibrancy and that kind of like feeling good again, which we know that they come to us for, and we're so privileged to be able to do that for them. So just a really simple way to bring that shine and that sparkle.
I love that. I love that so much. Yes. Who doesn't want to shine like a diamond? Okay, so for all of you that are on today, thank you so much for joining. For those that are watching in the future, thank you for tuning in. We are going to, if you have not yet, make sure you add yourself to our Facebook group. You're going to go to Stylist Culture Collective on Facebook. And if you're on a cell phone, it'll be right there. It's like a little scrolling. It's the second option just underneath the banner, and it says groups. And when you click on groups, you'll see ours. Just ask to join, fill out a couple brief questions so we can verify who you are. And in there, we had one additional thing pop up in the chat, and so I'm going to offer it here. And that way, if you are wondering if you should be part of this group, this is why you should, because as we start to create this dialogue, I would love to see our community pour back out into our community. And so as you're writing the dialogue, or maybe doing some of these email blasts, you know, snapshotting what you're doing, sharing with your fellow industry professionals, copy and pasting the language that you're using. You guys, we are better together. We are not in this against each other. We are in this with each other. And so sometimes you just get mental blocks on how to word that, or you're not saying it as eloquently as you'd like. Let's come together and really show what this community can do when we lock arms and support one another. So in there, as we create that dialogue, thank you, Annika, for asking. We'll put that stuff in the chat, in the Facebook group. And so if you're watching us in the future, please, by all means, join that group. We'd love to have you. And thank you all for all that you're doing. Have a beautiful day.